It was an early Friday morning. Brian was standing by his locker to get ready for the first class when someone called out to him, "Hey, Brian!" Brian turned around and saw it was actually his best friend, Robin. "Robin, you're late!" "I'm sorry, I got stuck in traffic," said Robin. "Well, you only had a few minutes before the first class starts." "I know." So while it the next few minutes that Robin was getting pick out the books that he needed for the first class. "So, do you have any plans for the weekend?" asked Robin. Um, yeah, I kinda do have plans." "Oh? What kind of plans do you have?" asked Robin. "Well, me and my dad are going to work on my car this weekend." "Whole weekend?" Robin asked. "Yeah, sadly." "Well, we can always do something next weekend." "That we can do." They gave each other a high five before Robin had to run to his class and Brian did the same. Brian was standing outside the English class and he noticed there were a few other students over there waiting for a teacher. And soon the teacher did arrive and they all walked in. Brian was actually a very good student at school. He was among the A Street class students and also one of the few students that actually was very popular and he was very well liked by both staff and other students. And in fact, he has been helping around at school and it happens that he even stays after school to help one of the teachers or perhaps even a principal if needed. Even though his parents doesn't even bother to that because they were just happy to have a son that is actually very helpful to other people because that is what gets you far in life, his father told him. But after class, he went straight to the next and the next. Around lunch break, he was expecting to find Robin by the table that they usually sits, but he noticed the table was empty. So he sat down, but only a few minutes later, Robin did show up. "So, how's your day been so far?" Robin asked with a smirk. That's as usual." But as he was just sitting there talking, they heard a voice behind them. "Hey guys!" Both turned around and saw Jessica. Jessica was an old friend of both Robin and Brian from elementary school. They had known her for a very long time, but they usually spend a lot of time with her when they were back in elementary, in middle school. But since they all started in high school, Jessica has started being a little bit different. She started being more conclusively. She started being more as a girl because back in elementary and middle school, she was like a tomboy with them. But ever since she started being high school, she preferred to be more like a girl, which they don't mind. She didn't actually start to hang out with other girls and become one of the popular ones, but shortly after that she started high school, Brian and Robin started hearing from stories and rumors, or more as statements, about certain characters, some different character that Jessica was like. They heard from other people that shortly after they started high school, she had become the new bully. She started teasing at first other classmates, like calling like, "Oh, you're the shy girl," or "You're the shy guy," or just also by the next step by calling her four eyes, or ugly, unintelligent, stupid, moron. But she never even do anything physical harm, but only like verbally. And even for the past few months, she had been continuing to this for other students. And in fact, just shortly before the second year start, just shortly after the second year of college, high school started, she had been bullying two students, which they dropped out. Two guys. Two guys that both Robin and Brian knew quite well. They just dropped out because they couldn't even handle the pressure that Jessica put them through. Both Brian and Robin was really devastated. They really actually were quite mad at Jessica having bullying those two guys because they were very good, decent, were respectful to other students, but they couldn't handle the pressure. But Brian who has non-tolerance against bullying, had hopes that one day that he could do something about it. He just said to Robin sometimes that she is a very devastating from she used to be. Yeah, that's true, said Robin back. Brian then looked at Jessica with a smile and said, "What can I do for you, sir, Jessica?" I just wonder if you wanted to do something after school. Well, to be honest, I can't. I mean, I have a lot of chores back home, and I really is really being occupied all weekend. I am actually going to help my dad with my car, so yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it's okay though. Maybe next week. We'll see. So Jessica turned around and walked away. You know that she really has a crush on you. You don't tell me about it. I know that already though, but I know you will not be with her because how she been acting towards other students. Exactly, said Brian back. You know, let's try to talk about something else. I mean, I feel a bit depressed by talking about her. Yeah, I know. As they were talking, they were just talking about some other stuff like their favorite games, all that kind of things. But Brian, while they were talking, he looked around in the cafeteria and he noticed one girl that he did like by the name Isabella. Isabella was actually a very cute girl, but according to like Jessica, she's a nerd, and in fact she is one amongst many students that Jessica had been bullied for the past few months, calling her stupid, ugly, that she is too intelligent, that no boy would ever want to be with her, like she is too ugly, she dressed stupidly, she dressed too ugly, and speaks too quiet, and no guys would ever want to be with someone like who's talk like that, too quiet or too shy to even be around. So Jessica just continued to focus mainly on her. After school was over, Brian and Robin said goodbye to each other, and Robin drove home, and Brian stood there by his car to get things fixed, and he noticed Isabella. She was standing by the sidewalk. She was on the phone, and he only heard a few words like, "Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, I will get home, and somehow, yeah, don't worry, I will be home soon. Yeah, okay, bye." He overheard that she was on the phone with someone, and he walked up to her and asked if something was wrong. She was a bit startled because she didn't even hear him for walking up to her. She turned around and saw it was Brian. "Oh, Brian, no, my dad's supposed to pick me up, but he had some problems with the car at home, so yeah, so I probably had to walk home." Since Isabella didn't live that far from Brian, only like 2 blocks away from him, so he offered to drive her home. She accepted it. So on the way there, they were just small talking about school stuff and other something like that. They usually talk sometimes in school or like that. But even though that Brian were in love with Isabella, he had never actually had the courage enough to even to mention something like that to her, because he was a little bit too nervous. But after he dropped her off, she said thanks for the lift, and she waited off, and he went home. That weekend, he did spend a lot of time with his dad to fix his car because it has been acting up a little strangely. But after the weekend, they have managed to fix the car, which was a big solution for him, because Brian had really had hope that they could fix the car because he didn't want to get another one because he loved this car. This was actually the car that he got from his parents after he turned 17. After all, he loved the car, and he treated it as his most precious value. But the next week, Brian went back to school as normal, hang out with Robin. They had some classes together, and around the lunch break, Robin was telling Brian that he had just got the new Call of Duty game and he was dying to play it against him. Brian, which is a big fan of shooting games like Call of Duty, Half-Life, or even, well, any kind of shooting games. And it's like, what? You actually got the new Call of Duty? Wow, dude. Sign me up for this weekend. I will beat you. Ha! Wait, don't tell me you only play the game. Well, duh. I mean, I only played a part of the game so far. Well, I will beat you, no matter what you say. Oh, bring it on, said Robin back with a chuckle. They would just continue talking about this upcoming weekend. But as they were talking, they saw Jessica walking up to their table and said, hey, Brian. Oh, it's Jessica. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think it is possible you maybe can help me with my homework, after school? Brian didn't have any particular plans or didn't have any chores, so he said, yeah, why not? You can go to the library if you want to. Yeah, that sounds good. At school? You bet. Are you really going to help her? Well, I mean, she did ask me, and I always help anyone who's in need, even if it is Jessica. Well, you should be expecting that she might try to do some movements on you. Don't tell me about it, he said Brian while rolling his eyes. Well, let's focus to enjoy the lunch and continue to focus on the school by the end of the day, for at least. I hear you. By the end of the day, though, Brian was standing by his car waiting for Jessica. And as she did walk up to him, she smiled and said things that he was willing to help her. So they decided to try to this local library to have where they could study more privately. Even Brian already knew that she might do something to make this movement on. But at the library though, he tried to make sure that she was focused on the studying of this homework she needed help with. Sure, she did make some small hints about any romantic involvement with her or something. She did ask him, from time to time, if he had found someone to be with, or if there's any girl that he liked at school. Even though he do love Isabella, but he said he liked her that no. Not really though. I mean, I has only mainly been focused on my studies and, my best friend Robin, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I haven't really focused on any dating because I'm not really focused on dating for a while. I mean, I'm not even interested in seeing anyone particular at the moment. That actually made Jessica a little bit sad, but she doesn't give up hope that maybe one day soon that she could end up being bit with Brian. After they finished their studying after a couple of hours, Brian and Jessica left the library and he took her home. Back home though, things actually started to look more different because he really wanted to tell Isabella how he felt for her. The next day at school, during lunch break, Brian and Robin was sitting by the table, and as usual, when Robin asked Brian how this studying with Jessica, he said that was actually went normal, even though he did notice that she did make some comments or statements or tried to even hit on him a couple of times, but he made one statement towards her that he wasn't looking forward to dating anyone at the moment. And Robin said, do you think that actually helped? I can't say for certain, but I doubt it, said Brian back. I mean, I don't even want to date her in the first place because you know how she is like with other students. Well, at least some of them. Yeah, they're true. But is there anyone else though that you may want to date? I mean, just curiously. Um, Brian looked around and leaned forward to Robin and said, "There's only one girl I would like to date." Who? Isabella. Isabella? And he nodded and looked at the table where she's sitting by some of her friends. Well, you're not wrong though. She is a very cute girl. Well, how about it? I think maybe that could actually work. And as they were sitting there talking, suddenly they heard this sound in from the hallway. Did you hear that? Yeah, what was that? And they heard it again. Bang, bang, bang. Is that someone angry banging on the lockers again? Well, that's not the first time that happened, said Brian. But the sound did sound like it kind of like that, said Brian though. But as the sound getting louder, and suddenly it stopped. But then the doors opened, and two people walked in. Wait, isn't that Noah and Peter? Said Robin. Yeah, it is. But what are they doing here? I thought they dropped out of school about early this year. Yeah, wait, wasn't those guys that actually the Jessica somehow pressured in to drop out of school earlier? Yeah, exactly, said they were whispering. But what are they doing back here? Maybe they are here to see some old friends? Maybe. But before they could even finish each other's sentence, they heard this loud bang, and they all both turned around and saw that Noah was holding a handgun, and he just fired in a shot in the ceiling, and he was screaming, "Everyone, get down on the floor!" He was screaming so loud, and at first everyone was petrified sitting there, and he fired another round on the floor in the ceiling and said, "Get down!" And everyone, you did that. Everyone was laying on the floor or taking shelter under the tables. And then Peter stepped forward and said, "Where is Jessica? Where is she?" He screamed loudly. But there was silence because after the second round of shot in the ceiling, no one didn't even dare to even whisper. "Where is Jessica?" screamed Peter once again. But then they heard a sound. "School is going to lock down. This is not a drill. School is going to lock down." The school was getting it a serious lockdown, and that has never been happening before. Well, according to at least during the time of Peter, during the time of Robin and Brian have been in school. But once again, Peter screamed, "Where is Jessica?" But despite that Peter's screaming, asking where Jessica is, none of the students did even answer. But can anyone even have blamed them? They were so terrified. First of all, Noah shot 2 rounds of his handgun in the ceiling, demanded everyone get down on the floor, and now they're demanding to know where Jessica is. But the other students were so terrified, horrified in Warren's act. But then Noah said, "If no one doesn't say where Jessica is, I will shoot anyone in here. I don't even care who it is." And Peter said the same thing also. But still, no one didn't respond. But then, Noah started walking around everything on the table and looking down. She's not even here. Where she can be? I don't even know, said Peter back angrily. I thought she must be here. Where is she? Screamed Peter once again, and he fired one shot in the ceiling, what looks like was a machine gun. People were so terrified. Students started crying, and they couldn't even get a word out. "You! Get over here right now!" said Peter, screamed to one of the students on the table. But the student was so terrified. But then Noah walked up and dragged the student out of her table and said, "Where is she?" "I don't know." And then Peter said, "Where is she?" "I don't know," said the students crying. And Noah slapped her right in the face and pushed her to the floor and said, "There's no word that. I don't think anyone here knows where she is. Peter, you stay here and I will find her. You know that this school is locked down. The police may be on the way. We don't have much time." "I know, but we have to do what we came here." So Noah left the cafeteria, and Peter, who was still standing there, but now he didn't say a single word. He was pointing his machine gun towards any students. He was expecting maybe now he's not us alone that some of the students may try to do something, but in fact they were even so scared they wouldn't even want to do anything. They were even too scared to even move an inch. But Peter didn't even notice that Brian and Robin was talking to each other, or at least in whisper. "What should we do? I don't know. Try to talk to him? Are you insane? You see how he's like mentally unstable. You don't know how it is like. I mean, he has a machine gun for God's sake. I mean, who else do you think he could have here? I think there's only Noah and Peter in the school. Yeah, but who else do you think they can have in here? Well, the school is locked down. It's unlikely to have any chance to get anyone in here. And like as Noah said, the police might be on the way, or perhaps even outside." "What are you two talking about?" said Peter, screaming at the pointed weapon. "Peter, it's me, Brian." "Brian? What are you doing here?" "Well, this is the cafeteria, isn't it? Can I talk to you?" Brian said, tried to sit up. But Peter, he didn't say, "I don't know," but he was pointing his weapon towards them. "Alright, sit down." And he pointed to the table to sit down. "Peter, what in the world are you doing? I know you're a good guy, but what did it get you in your and Noah's mind to do this? I mean, come on. You were one of the best students in school. I understand you, Peter. You and Noah were bullied by Jessica. And still no one even do anything about it." "I tried." "You did?" "Yes." "Who do you think tried to convince the teacher, or at least tried to tell someone about it? Don't you even remember that someone tried to talk to her, trying to confirm to the student principal that someone had been bullying? But the students was not. They was not even saying anything. I did, but unfortunately, no one even believed me." "What?" "That's true," said Robin on the table. "He did try to tell someone, but no one even believed him. Because Jessica is such popular, she's a good student like us. And she has been avoided being doing anything. She has only been bullying students without any teachers or any of the staff around." "You're lying." "I'm not. Peter, you know me well. Have you ever seen me lie to anyone? Anyone?" Peter stood there silently, and he knew that Brian was right. He has never done anything to do this, and he has never lied to anyone, not even his friends or the teachers. But Brian had tried to convince him to just lower the weapon and give him up. He said, "Alright, Peter, if you turn yourself right now over to the police, you will get at least a more decent punishment. Is it really worth killing our students about this idea for just what she did? I mean, come on. Do you want to punish other students because what she did towards you and Noah? Is that what you truly had in mind?" "No." "So why did you even do this? I mean, why? I can understand you want to punish her, but But doing this to other students is this is out of character for you. I mean, you were all these funny guys in the school. Listen, listen to your own mind. But before Brian could even finish, Noah showed up. Hey, who told you to sit up there? I did, said Peter screamingly. What the hell, Peter? Do you know that this is Brian? Peter interrupted. Brian? And he looked. Brian, I'm sorry about all this coming like this. But listen, I tried to convince Peter. Why are you even doing this? I know you want to punish Jessica what she did. But punish other students or terrifying us this way? Is this the only way you want to do? No. I know you guys. This is not what you want to do. Listen to yourself. If you turn yourself into place right now, that is not what happened, said Noah. And he pointed his weapon to Brian. Slate, get down! Noah put his weapon towards Brian again. He said, get down! But Brian didn't budge. Are you saying that you not want to listen to me? You know, I'm not even care if I shoot you. Get down! Said Peter also. Robin looked at his friend and said, Brian, just do it. It's not worth it if you get killed or shot like this. Brian at first didn't want to do it, but then he luckily did. But then he saw that Peter once again raised his weapon up in the air and said, where is Jessica? If anyone doesn't tell me where she is right now, I will shoot again. I was silent. But then Peter shot once again in the air, but this time with his machine gun, and it hit like 3 rounds in the ceiling. And one of the girls started crying a lot more louder. Shut up! Shut up! Screamed Noah and Peter at the same time, and they looked around who it was. And they saw it was young girl. And Peter and Brian saw Brian and Robin saw it was Isabella. And Peter walked up to her and said, shut up! Shut up! Get her shut up! But no one tried. If you don't shut up in the next 5 seconds, I will fire this gun at your head. But it only made Isabella cry even more. Hey, don't do that, said Brian loud. Listen, okay. I don't know where Jessica is. But since the school is a lockdown, it's unlikely she cannot get out of school. And then Noah said, yeah, he's right. The school is a lockdown. It's unlikely that even if she did. Listen, there's only 2 ways here. She could get out of school before there's a lockdown. She may be outside already. Or she is in school already. Listen, I know you don't want to listen to me anymore. But fighting at the students. You know that if you kill her, you will end the problems like in jail for life without parole. Is that the life worth of doing this? Listen to yourselves. You guys were the most best guys friends I had. And I wouldn't want to be able to see any of you end up in jail for life, for murder of all things. Peter tried to convince Noah that this was not the perhaps the word, but Noah said, listen, you signed up for this, no matter what kind of punishment Jessica would have. But Peter said, we have both agreed not to harm others, only Jessica. I don't care anymore. If she doesn't get here, I will shoot anyone who doesn't tell me where she freaking is, said Noah angrily. But Peter tried to talk to his friend, or at least his accomplice, but it didn't even work. Brian tried to at least crawl over to Isabella. Hey, don't move! And then he fired on the floor, but only like a feet away from him. Brian stopped, and that made even Isabella cry even more. You don't move. Listen, if you listen No more talking! Listen! If you let me try to calm her down, it doesn't have to be no freak out. Peter looked at Noah and said, Fine, do it. What? Listen, just let him do it. We don't have to more freakouts. Fine. And then Brian crawled over to Isabella and said, Isabella, please calm down. But she was unresponsive. Even her best friend tried to calm her down, but there was no point. Isabella was so terrified. But then Peter said, if no one here doesn't tell us where this freaking idiot Jessica is, she will be fired, even if we don't find her. Listen, we have until one moment later, said Noah. We had to find her first. But then, suddenly someone said, if you're looking for Jessica, I'm here. And then she turned around and stood up on one of the tables. Turns out Jessica were in the cafeteria the whole time. So you were here the whole time, and no one did tell us? At right at the same time, Brian had managed to calm down Isabella, and told her, I'm going to try to do something about this situation. But Isabella just shook her head, and even at the time, even Isabella's best friend Kelly had also said, it's not worth it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. But Brian didn't listen this time. As they did that, Noah and Peter didn't even notice. Brian crawled under the table, under the next table, and the next, and the next. And then he was only one table away from Jessica. Listen, Jessica, what you put me and Noah through is enough. Your reign of terror is now finally over. I don't even care about you two. You are the most stupid, ugliest guys in this school anyways. But then Peter fired another round in the ceiling. But that somehow terrified Jessica, but she stayed to the ground for some reason. Even though Jessica was terrified, but she tried to stand and act tough. She was a tough person, that's for certain, but she tried to act tough. But even she was freaking out, terrified, inside. Listen. And then Peter and Noah pointed weapons towards her. You will not leave here without your life, said Peter, almost so angry he was could almost see it. It was like seam of his ears. But then, as Brian was about so close, he literally was only like a few inches away from her. But then Noah said, get ready to meet your maker. And Noah pointed his handgun. And as about to open fire, Brian stood up and somehow ran as fast as he could in front of Jessica, and the bullet hit Brian right in his chest twice. Both Noah and Peter stood there shocked. And Jessica, she saw Brian on the floor, almost bleeding out. Dude, I did not sign up for this. And Peter said, almost shocked but angrily, he's my friend. I don't want to fire him. But Noah said, that's his own fault. Now, fire on her. No, I give up. I don't want to do it anymore, said Peter, and just dropped his weapon on the floor. But at the same time that happened, two police stormed in. There were at least 10 police officers pointing their weapons towards them, but Peter said, I give up. But Noah didn't want to. He pointed his weapon, but Peter said, it's not worth it. You're alone against them. But Noah then he said, I don't care. But somehow Peter used one of his hand and knocked and smashed it right behind Noah's head, and it made him drop his weapon and made made them dizzy for a moment, but long enough for the police to run up to them and arrest them. Isabella had at the time, along with Robin, run up to Brian, called for an ambulance for anyone who could help him. And of course, after that, both Noah and Peter was arrested. Brian was taken out to an ambulance by EMTs, but they didn't know exactly because he lost a lot of blood. But before they was taking him away, he said to Isabella, "Isabella, I love you," before he passed out. And then he was taken away. After all this, the school was closed for the rest of the week. The students were so in shock, and the police asked every single student who were in the cafeteria when this happened for even more details of what they wanted to have. But since most of them were so terrified, they couldn't even get any simple answer, except for Robin. Robin had at least more calmed down enough, and he explained the reason why suddenly Noah and Peter showed up, fired this weapon around them. And now the police had the true motive. But what about Jessica? Now the school found out that she was a bully, and also the truth behind the trigger to cause this to happen. They asked her for demand for answers why she has been doing this, but she didn't have any direct answers for once. She was really so terrified that she didn't even know what to do. But eventually she explained that she only did it for fun. She didn't actually harm any students by any physical way, only verbally. But even her own parents were so shocked that her bullying had led 2 students to drop out, 2 same students who had tried to kill her own daughter after school, but her parents were so upset on their own daughter, so they pulled off her from school, and they said that she was sent to a different high school for troubled kids. And that was even the last one anyone saw of Jessica. But during the time, Brian's parents had been told what happened. They were beyond terrified, because they were found out that when they went to hospital along with Robin, they found out that Brian was in surgery. But they wouldn't even have any much update. After several hours of surgery, they were told Brian would make a full recovery. Even though he had only lost some blood, but the bullets had only hit his liver, but he will make a full recovery. But they told him that they had to spend at least 1 week in the hospital, and then he could, by any good chance, he could be released after just 1 week. Worst case, he had to stay there for another maybe 2 weeks more. But during the time that he was in school, that he was in hospital, the whole school was closed. And this event was on the news all the week. Some of the damage that were Noah and Peter did by the fired shots would have to be repaired. Brian, he was a local hero to among other students and the people. He tried to de-escalate this whole event from the beginning. That made him a local hero. Even though that some of the reporters wanted to talk to him, but the doctors refused. Not until he was even better condition. But after he were a little bit in better condition, after like a couple of days, they were allowed to talk to him. And only for a brief moment, because he needs a lot of rest. But he gave the statements, or at least his side of the story, what happened, even though they already knew what would happen, but they want to have his view. And they want to hear what he went through his mind when all this happened. Considering other students told them that they were so scared that they didn't want to do anything, but Brian was only the one brave enough to do this. Even a lot of students went to see him. But one particular student, Isabella was to see him only 2 days after he was made to have visitors. She only stayed for a brief moment since that was how long she was allowed to stay. She asked him if he really meant what he said to her before he passed out at school, and he meant every single word. He told her that he was supposed to be telling her earlier, but he felt so scared. And now that all this happened, he didn't know what if he would even survive or not. So he wanted to use the last energy that he had before he passed out to tell her how he felt. After that moment, Isabella told him that she also had a crush on him. For at least a while, she was too shy to even mention this to him. After she found out that Robin confirmed to her that Brian wouldn't love her. So after that moment itself, both agreed to go on a date as soon as Brian was allowed to go home again. After about almost 2 weeks, he was allowed to go home. But since he was requested by the doctor to stay home and not do any physical activities until that he made sure that he had made full recovery. So they had a movie night at Brian's home. Brian and Isabella, they actually had become a couple. Even after when he came back to school, every student knew about that. And everyone actually very much congratulated him for having found his true love, but also not only that. Having been a such hero that saved not only Isabella, but other students. And he said, I would have done it over and over, even if it meant my own life would have been in jeopardy. My life against more. Those words actually made him very trustworthy to all other students. In fact, he had even his photo taken and was put into school as school heroes, or at least school celebrities. After all this done, what happened about him and Isabella? Well, since they were now a couple, they went on many different dates. And even after all despite what happened, their relationship only grew stronger and stronger for each single day. They went on many different dates. Movies, picnics, restaurants, or just having a movie night at either his or her place. But after all this, Brian had only another thought in his mind. He actually went to the jail to see Peter and Noah. They heard that he's pulled through. But Noah, he felt devastated and also felt very much regretful what he did. Peter, the same thing. But eventually, even though they feel like they both felt so regretful at what they did. Brian said that he will testify against them, testify that what they went through was a psychological effect from their pressure of being bullied. And even though Peter and Noah said that he didn't have to, because they were willing to take the punishment for what they did. Even though Brian tried to convince them that with his help, they may get even less serious punishment, but both Peter and Noah doesn't even want to have any extra help. They were ready to take the punishment as no matter how severe it actually were, and they did. But they were only served like 10 years in jail for what they did. And that was something both actually agreed to accept. So after all that, Brian were at least happy that he made pull through from this being shot twice. And that not only have this amazing girl in his side, Isabella was really happy to have Brian by her side. Despite what he went through, and especially what the whole school went through, This was even beyond anything one that anyone in school could ever imagine to happen. But ever since that happened, the principal made a new protocol to make sure that all students were in a safe place, and also to make sure that the school hired security officers, security guards, to make sure that there were no guns, knives, or any weapons whatsoever would be entered school property. And that rule was accepted by the school board. Brian had really been felt happy to at least been prevented a full-scale murder at the school. But even though he wished that Jessica could have been punished herself too, but being put in a school for troubled kids was at least the punishment enough for her, he thought. After what he put both Noah and Peter through, as and other countless of other students in school, this was the at least severe punishment that she deserved. But he agreed. She didn't deserve to get her life been taken by two former students, despite what she went to put them through. Because taking one other person's life because what they went through wasn't absolutely not even worth it. But Peter and Noah said to Brian before the last time he saw them that they wished that none of this could have happened. They just wished that the school could have believed Brian in the first place, and maybe then all of this could have been prevented. And Brian agreed. If the school could not have listened and believed Brian of all this, but despite one thing, Brian was well liked by all the students and staff, especially particularly the principal. So both Brian was asked by Noah and Peter, why didn't the school believe him, despite that all the staff liked him or well know that he never lied? But he said he was told that they asked Jessica, but they couldn't find anyone that was willing to come forward. They tried to ask any students who had been bullied by her. Turns out that the reason why there wasn't any that they didn't believe, because no student, they never confirmed, they denied that they had been bullied by her. But it turns out that Jessica has scared them so enough about her bullying, they refused to even have any acknowledgement that they were bullied. They didn't want to confirm to anyone. So that's the reason why, without any witnesses willing to testify, would he confirm that it actually happened. So without the witnesses, there were no proof. So that was the reason why the school couldn't even believe the stories that Brian told them, despite he was known to be always been telling the truth. Even the principal said that he felt very devastated. He also said if this could have been proven right, none of this could have been happening. He felt very devastated himself that he couldn't have made this prevented. But Brian told the principal, you could not have known. None of us could. And even though that Brian was right, it could have been prevented somehow. But what happened to Brian and Isabella afterwards? Well, they went through the high school as normal, despite what happened early that second year of high school. But they mentioned it. They finished high school and went to two different college. Brian went to one out of state, while Isabella remained in the home state. Brian, he wanted to work with cars because he was loved to be a mechanic, so he did. And Isabella, she wanted to be a teacher, or at least maybe do something about teaching or maybe with animals. But since that she had her dream to work at pet shop, she loved one that when she lived in her hometown. After both actually finished college, they actually went back to their particular families, and they even bought a small apartment in town and moved in. Brian started working as a mechanic, and Isabella, well, she did end up working at that pet shop that she loved so much. And eventually, after they have been living together for about 2 years, Brian proposed to her and she said yes. They decided to have a small wedding, which they didn't mind to have. they invited close friends and close family. Kelly, Isabella's best friend, became a bridesmaid, and a little bit out, Brian had asked Robin to be his best man, and they actually had a good time. Even though it was a small wedding and it was a small wedding party, both families were just happy to see how happy both Brian and Isabella were together. And eventually they decided to have a small honeymoon, but for about a week in a different town. And 2 years later, they were found out they were expecting a baby. And they even had a baby girl which they named Anna. And 3 years later, they have a boy which they named Johnny. Johnny was the absolute most amazing kid that they both actually loved. And this is how Brian and Isabella found a true love, got a family together. The end.